Hey everyone, it's Super Robot back again with another penny stock video. I've got some exciting stocks lined up to take a look at this week. And what's going to be the focus of this video? Well, two different things, right? We're going to start off with game changer news. So there's some game changer news going around and I want to talk about it real quick. And that's going to be the first focus of this video. And then we're going to go into earnings season in the world of OTC stocks. And so we are in that earnings season period. A lot of companies are coming out with their quarterly financials. And we're going to cover a few of them that I have handpicked that I think are interesting, important to look at. Two of them are growing companies, and one is kind of growing. And we're going to talk about that one, and hopefully it can be a bit of education for everybody, because I think there's some important topics to cover when it comes to earnings season, and I think there's a lot of things that aren't understood in terms of how earnings can provide value to shareholders, etc., etc. So we're going to be talking about earnings, we're going to be doing a little bit of education on earnings, and I'm going to be giving you a little bit of my opinion on some of these different earnings I picked out to cover. Okay, so first thing, like I said, is going to be the game changer news. What is the game changer news? Here's the twist. We don't know yet. And the stock we're going to be looking at regarding this is BLQC, Block Quarry Corp. What this company does is it's a crypto mining focused company. So they do crypto mining and technologies related to cryptocurrencies. And, you know, this is a really cool sector because there's so much growth potential in this sector, right? Crypto, I know it's been around for like 10 years, so it may seem weird to call it a new thing, but realistically speaking, it's a new thing, right? Because compared to like every other currency or, you know, transaction platform, online, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it, digital asset, whatever you want to call it, this whole concept is still new, all right, in the context of history where we've had regular paper currencies for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's very hard at this point in time to project where this whole crypto thing is going. We're still so early in the growth process with many of these companies in the crypto sphere. And also we've recently seen over the past few months a bit of a crypto surge, right? A big comeback for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, as well as crypto mining stocks. So in that regard, BLQC, right off the bat, we're in a very interesting and volatile sector, which is something traders love, okay? And let's talk about BLQC a little more in depth, starting with the share structure, because we always start with the share structure. It's always a very important thing to take a look at when you're doing OTC stock research and small cap research as well. Okay, so for BLQC, we have this 88 million unrestricted. We have 10 million restricted shares, and that's going to give us a total of 98 million outstanding shares. Now, for our tradable float, we have 86 million, almost 87 million shares. And that's the held at DTC, right? This is what we use for reference when it comes to talking about a stock's tradable float. And what the float essentially is, as I've talked about in other videos, is it's the amount of shares that are on the open market that are ready to be traded and that are circulating in the hands of different traders and investors, okay? So that's how many shares are available in the open market, is 86 million. And that's quite an appealing share structure. Again, as we've talked about in previous videos, if you've looked at something like DDDX, which I've covered, had a kind of similar share structure to this. And it's an appealing share structure because, right, we've talked about when there's not a lot of shares available, which 86 million comparatively to most OTC companies is not a lot. A lot of OTC companies have like 1 billion shares in the float. So 86 million shares, not a lot comparatively to most OTC companies. And when we have high demand for shares and very little available in the market, such as this, then we can see volatile price action, specifically towards the upside, assuming we have buying pressure, right? And so I say towards the upside because as we take a look at the chart in a moment, you're going to see that we have a nice double bottom here. And I think it can really do a nice run off of this double bottom. It's found a good support level. It's shown its potential in terms of how far it can move. And we're going to be taking a look at that in just a moment. But why is this stock of interest to me right now? Well, the reason is we're going to have to take a look at their Twitter. Okay? And so here's Block Quarry Corp on Twitter. And it's this August 7th and August 11th tweets that really have me interested in what's coming here. Okay, so we know first and foremost that the OTC and penny stock markets can be speculative investing markets, right? So what that means is when there's hype, when there's speculation, when there's momentum, that's when we tend to see stocks do well. Okay, so in the case of BLQC, we absolutely have that. So August 7th, we can see exciting times at Block Quarry. We're getting closer to revealing that special something we've been working tirelessly on. Stay tuned for a game-changing announcement. So that's where I got, the whole game changer news from. They say it right here. There's a game-changing announcement coming. Hashtag game changer. I don't know. I love that word or that phrase, right? I think it creates a lot of hype. I think it creates a lot of speculation. I think the market is going to get after that because again, we love trading speculative stocks. We love trading hype. We love trading momentum. So I will remind people, all of this is my opinion. None of this is financial advice. I don't have a license for shit, right? I don't have a license as a broker. I don't have a license as a financial advisor. Don't have a license as an analyst. And I'm not claiming to be any of those things. This is a video for entertainment purposes and for my commentary and for my opinions. So moving forward on that, then we have August 11th tweet. Exciting things are in the works at BLQC. Stay tuned for updates and news about our latest endeavors. Your support keeps us going. Stay tuned. Exciting times, innovation, right? So very obvious that the company is setting up here for some very big announcements, or as they call it, game changer announcements. And, when we see, if we do see that game changing news come to light and hit the PR wires and really surprise people, and it's a big deal, then we can see a massive run here, I do believe, because like we talked about, it has that share structure to do a large run, to be a very volatile movement on the stock. So let's take a look at the chart now, right? Because we actually have a really nice setup here for the game changer news to come. Because if we look at the daily chart on a 1-year time frame, we can see, first of all, not too long ago in February of this year, the stock was trading over 40 cents, almost 50 cents. It's now down to 5 cents. And what happened last time it hit 5 cents? Well, right here we see we hit 5 cents. And what happened, and it was 5 cents, I'm sorry, in June. And then in late June, it did a run off bottom to almost 15 cents here. And so that's a 3x, that's 300%, 3x return on buying the bottom around 5 cents. And that was just a couple months ago. And now we formed what's called a double bottom on the chart. So once again, it's come back down to that price range around 5 cents. It's finding support. It's finding buyers here. We look at the MACD. The MACD wants to curl. It hasn't curled quite yet, right? But it wants to curl. It's so close to going bullish here. And so all the indicators that I'm looking at are telling me we have a double bottom. All right, we see volume picked up a little bit a couple days ago. People are loading here, that tells us. And again, we know that the potential here is it can really go. And look, when it went to 15 cents off 5 cents, there wasn't even a ton of volume, right? So this is a thin trading, low float stock that can really have nice volatile action to the upside. And with game-changing news on the way, as they say on their Twitter, it's safe to assume, right, or at least it's a good idea in my head that's saying, okay, this can be a good trade because we have double bottom with potential upside, 3x returns, if not more, right? Because we know the stock has done more than that before in the past. I mean, the stock has done 40 cents just not too long ago. So, big upside here from 5 cents in my opinion. Very much bottomed out. As those announcements start rolling in, I think we'll see positive reflection in share price. And so that's my idea going into this trade, right? And so let's also take a look at a little bit of their financials, because this is what I want to highlight here. We talked about, I told you, remember, 5.7 million market cap, right? We talked about 5.7 million market cap. Well, let's now look at their financials, and we can see total assets is $8 million. So they have $8 million in total assets, $5.6 million just in property and equipment. All right, and if we look at liabilities, do they have debt? Absolutely. But you have to understand that in an OTC growth phase, you're going to have debt, right? If you're building a real company in OTC, you're going to have debt. You're going to have liabilities. It is what it is. That's at this stage in the game, it's very rare to find something that doesn't have debt. And so there is about $8 million in total current liabilities. But we also have $8 million total assets. And if we look at at the again at the market cap, $5.7 million market cap, $8 million in assets, something's not right here, right? To me, this just screams undervalued, because it's trading at virtually no multiple of the assets at all, which is crazy, right? You very rarely see that in a stock. So clearly undervalued, if you ask me. Obviously my opinion, but with a $5.7 million market cap and $8 million in assets, double bottom on the chart, game changer news on the way, BLQC is certainly, in my opinion, setting up to be a fantastic trade from these levels. So that's BLQC. I'll be putting out coverage on this stock on Twitter, on the social medias throughout the week. I'm hoping they can release some news soon so we can really get some juice going here. But it certainly looks like a great setup. And now we're going to move on to earnings season, right? We're going to take a look at some earnings. So we're going to start with EPAZ. EPAZ has been a favorite of mine for a few weeks now. I mentioned it, I believe, 2 weeks ago in a video on here, and the stock has been performing pretty darn well. We first talked about when it was in the low 30s. It reached a high of like 0.0046. Then I think on Friday it closed around 0.0044. Yeah, right here, 0.0044 on Friday close. So the stock's been performing quite nicely from original call out price, right? From the first time I covered it. So now they've just released their earnings report, and it's quite positive. And so if you want to learn more about this company, you can go watch my video I did that focused on EPAZ from a couple weeks back. But there's a lot of great things happening with this company, a lot of big revenue in the pipeline, multi-millions in revenue in the pipeline. But let's talk about what they've done just this quarter, which is a 13.5% increase in revenue and a 71.8% increase in EBITDA. Okay, and also positive net income, which is fantastic to see on a penny stock, because I just talked about BLQC. These are growth companies. Usually they're not going to be profitable immediately. Usually they're going to have some debt, blah, 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 right? But EPAZ is already profitable and they already have net income. Really fantastic to see. And so you can see right here, if we bring up their financials, their quarterly report, we'll scroll down. And we'll scroll past all of the share issuances and everything like that. And eventually we get to the quarterly report. Voila, right? So here is, we can see they have total current assets, 1.2 million. Total assets altogether, 5 million in assets. Really solid there. Always great to see. And then we have our revenue. So here's our consolidated statements of operation, unaudited. And we can see this quarter they did 580,530 in revenue, compared to this quarter in of last year, they did 511,000 in revenue. So we talked about that from the press release. It highlights the 13.5% revenue increase. That's a very healthy increase in revenue. And what's really great is not only are they're increasing revenue already, and we haven't even seen all of these new drones that they're manufacturing hit the market yet, right? So if you've been following, and like I said, you can go watch the other video to see more, but if you've been following the recent press releases, you would know that this is a company that has another 40 drones now that are deploying out, right? Basically, they're in the manufacturing process with these drones, and once those deploy and are in service, each of those drones is going to be bringing in 100K to 200K in annual revenue per drone. So multi-million-dollar revenue pipeline, right, with what's being manufactured, but then with what's already out there, they're already growing revenue with the drones they have already out there working as a service. And so that's wonderful to see, because they're increasing the revenue at a healthy rate without even all of this other stuff in the pipeline coming. So what I'm thinking is, when all of those other drones hit the market, we're going to see an exponential growth eventually, right? In a coming quarter, there's going to be that point where we just see that exponential growth start coming in from all of these new drones out on the market. But always great to see the revenue growth there nonetheless. And we're going to be moving on from EPAZ now. Well, actually, I'm sorry, before we move on from EPAZ, I do want to talk about, they are teasing even more news. So, if you don't follow them on Twitter yet, they're at EPAZ. Go follow them. This company's always putting out great news. And so what they talked about on August 18th right, which was just this Friday, is EPAZ is aiming to get many updates out in the next few weeks, including a JV, U.S. Army medical, and major government presentation. Press release will be issued next week. So there's even more news coming on this ticker. Guys, I love this ticker. Like, it's just been trading nicely. It keeps getting loaded. Every time there's a dip, someone's buying it. It just, to me, it's like, this thing's going to break out. I mean, this thing will break out, if you ask me, right? I just love this ticker. I love the story they have. I love the product. I love the tech innovation. I love the revenue pipeline. I love that they're growing revenues. I love that they're super active on Twitter, super active with press releases, and they're trying to get in the door with U.S. Army and U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force and all of these other things. It's just great stuff coming out of these guys. Great stuff. I look forward to it very much so this week. I think this week might even be the big breakout week, just because of how I saw it trading last week. There was just so much heavy loading, so many buyers, every dip getting swallowed, right? So super bullish action here, and just super bullish announcement. U.S. Army Medical, if we get a deal with the U.S. Army announced this week, that's going to be massive. And we also know there's a joint venture coming as well. So very much looking forward to EPAZ, and you know, I hope people can appreciate the revenue growth that they've shown this quarter as well. So now let's move on to HIRU earnings. And HIRU is a stock I've also talked about in previous videos. This stock has been knocking it out of the park with revenue growth and profitability, knocking it out of the park, better than pretty much any OTC company I've seen from a pure financials standpoint. You know, at this level, right? So they're trading at 0.0048. So obviously, you know, there might be stocks on OTC that are $3-4 a share that have better revenue. But I'm talking about, you know, in their realm, on the pink sheets and the dubs, these guys are killing it. So let's look at their earnings. Okay, and every earnings report is something to look forward to with HIRU. It's always fun to read them. So now we're up to 10.8 million in assets, versus December 31st, 2022 was 8.5 million. So they're growing their assets, and 10.8 million in assets is fantastic for a penny stock like this, of this nature. Something trading in dubs, that's a pink sheet stock. You almost never see this. And it's 9.1 million of those assets are property, plant, and equipment. So this is a very real company producing very real results. Now let's get into the juicy stuff. We're going to be looking at their sales and revenue. So for this quarter alone, June 30th, 2023, quarter ended. For this quarter alone, guys, 7.8 million in sales. Crazy numbers. Crazy numbers. If you compare that to their quarter ended June 30th of last year, they were only doing 1.8 million in revenue. Exponential growth, guys. That's the name of the game. That's why we invest in these penny stocks, is because we want to get in at the ground floor and experience that exponential growth. And HIRU is the best example I've seen of just consistently growing their revenue, growing their profit, and growing their assets without taking on a lot of debt. And it's just been awesome to watch. This stock is truly undervalued, in my opinion. Doesn't get the love it deserves at all. This should be over a penny, if you ask me, easily. Just because it's been over a penny in the past, and I'll re-emphasize, guys, just because I have to say it, right? It's not financial advice. It is my opinion, but that's my opinion. I think that what a strong stock. Well done from the company. Give them a round of applause, folks. Now let's continue on, right? We're looking at gross profit. We're looking at 3.1 million, and then obviously a net income of 2.47 million. Fantastic numbers. Knocked it out of the park. Can't wait for next quarter. If you haven't been paying attention to HIRU yet, you really need to start paying attention to these guys, because when people go and complain on the social media websites about penny stocks, and they complain about how the companies suck, and they complain about how they can't make revenue growth, and they complain about too much debt, HIRU has none of those issues and has just been such a role model stock of how you should operate and how you should grow a company in the pink sheets. So, you know, if you're one of those people that's complaining about these things, why don't you go put your money where your mouth is and support a real company with real growth, such as HIRU? Okay, so that's HIRU. And now we're going to look at one more earnings report, which is INND. This is a bit of a cult stock, has a big social media following. It's gotten pumped many times in the past. It's always dumped back down. And, you know, I'm actually, typically in these videos, I focus always on positive things. right? Because I want people to be happy, and I want people to be excited, and I want people to be having fun. And you can't short penny stocks either, so you know, you kind of only want to look at the positive things, because the positive things are what's going to make you money, because you need the stock to go up to make money. You can't really make money on stock going down, right? But INND, you know, I'm sorry I have to do this, but we're going to rip into INND a little bit, okay? Because this stock gets so much hype, and you know, they're a hearing aid company. They have hearing aids in Walmart. That's really cool. So they're a legit company. So in that regard, I respect them. I respect the fact that they've been building their product and trying to build up revenue. But, you know, here's something that INND does that I don't like, and they dilute the crap out of their stock. And they have way too much debt, and they just... And frankly, it's been screwing shareholders for years, because this is a stock that used to trade way higher, and it's just been non-stop dilution, and no matter how many results they claim to have, they won't stop diluting, and it's like ridiculous. So we're going to take a look at their quarterly report, because I'm going to rip into these guys a little bit, and we're going to talk about why. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at their assets. And at first glance, you can see total assets being 37.5 million, which is a crazy amount of assets, huge amount of assets for a company at these levels. So at first glance, you're going to say, wow, that's impressive. Okay. But really it's not, because let's look let's look behind the curtain a bit, right? Let's pull the curtain back here. Let's look at intangible assets is 16.8 million. And then goodwill, which is just complete bullshit for those people that don't know. Like, if you're listing goodwill as an asset, like, it's just total BS. Okay. And it's just like, I've actually seen some companies get in trouble for it. So don't do this if you're an OTC company. But it's just inflating the numbers, right? Like, it's a loophole to inflate the asset numbers, basically. And what it is usually basically just insider ownership that they're planning on selling into the market. So goodwill of 8.8 million. So they're just inflating their asset numbers here. I'm not a fan of that. And here's why, right? Because they actually have decent numbers up here that are real. So why not just show them what the real assets are? Why do you have to like basically lie to people and inflate them? I don't get that. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of companies that do that. Sorry, but I just can't support listing that amount of goodwill and assets. I just don't think it's right. And then you look at their liabilities. They have 17.7 million in liabilities, quite a bit. And it doesn't, you know, it's coming down from last year, so that's good. It's 3 million less. So I'm not going to say everything about this company is bad, because it's not, right? They're trying to grow, but they're not there yet. To me, they're just not in the spot where I want them at yet. Okay, so a lot of liabilities, a lot of debt, inflating the asset numbers. And the reason I'm saying this in the video, guys, the reason I'm covering this is not to roast INND and not to bash INND and make INND shareholders fail, because I have said the company is doing a good job at having a real product, at getting into stores, etc. But there's flaws that they need to address. But the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to be educational for folks who are trying to understand OTC financials. And so when you look at financials like this and you see goodwill, and I want people to understand this is a red flag when you see goodwill listed as an asset, especially the size of this goodwill. Okay, so that's why I'm doing this, is for educational purposes. All right, and then we're going to take a look at the revenue. What happened? Okay, what happened? They did 7 million revenue 2022 quarter, but then this 2023 quarter they do 2.5 million revenue. So this is where it gets gross. This just pisses me off. This is the things people need to be aware of. This is how people get screwed in OTC. You know, revenue's falling. Profit fell significantly. Okay, you can see it was 3.7 million in profit 2022 quarter, and then in the quarter of 2023, you know, 1.7 million profit. So profits fell significantly, revenues fell significantly. Okay, and then but let's talk about why this sucks. And it's an issue that affects all of OTC, and it's an issue that just we need to be able to understand better. And that's the issue of dilution. And so there can be good and bad dilution. And if a company is diluting some to yield fantastic results that will benefit shareholders in the long run, that's okay. and that's acceptable dilution. But if a company is diluting a significant amount to result in no gain, and in this case a loss, man, I mean, guys, you just got to stop operating companies this way. So let's take a look at their dilution chart. Here we have their dilution chart. And we can see in 2021, June, it was around 4.5 billion shares unrestricted, which is already a large number. They've now they've now just about doubled that number. Okay. So now we're at 9.62 billion unrestricted. So they are diluting the crap out of this thing. And guess what? I would have been okay with it if they had good numbers to show for it. But they don't have good numbers to show for it. They're losing business. So these guys are dumping shares on your head while revenue and profit are going down. I just can't support something like that. I don't think this is a good way to operate business. And I don't think they're showing any results for all of the dilution that has occurred. So why are you taking out all of these loans? Why are you taking out all this debt? And why are you diluting your stock to nothing if you can't even grow the revenue? I just don't understand it. That's IMD. That's enough. I've said enough about it. I've roasted it enough. But it's for educational purposes because I want you guys to understand that when you can't dilute this much and not grow the business. If you're the only acceptable way to dilute this much is if you're growing the business, and they're not doing that. So I hope people can respect the fact that I'm trying to educate you a bit there, and also just kind of enlighten you into this is how I think, and this is my perspective on things. And so when people are like, why don't you like this, but you like this, blah, 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 you're getting a glimpse into how I think, right, through these videos. So that's enough on that. We're going to go back to what did I cover that's positive? I covered BLQC. We have game-changing news on the way on a very excellent share structure and a double bottom on the chart. So I think there's significant upside there. We have EPAZ with great earnings, with U.S. Army news on the way, with joint venture news on the way. Many, many things to look forward to with EPAZ, one of my favorites. And HIRU, another one of my favorites. Just a company that knocks it out of the park with earnings and doesn't dilute like an asshole. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed me getting a little heated in this one. And I'll be back next week with some more fantastic coverage for all of you.